What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we'll be going over 5 league-winning running backs. And when I talk about league-winning running backs, I don't really mean players that can just outperform their ADP. It is fantastic, when you draft the running back 50 and they end up 27th, but that's not winning you your league. Today we're going to try and find 5 running backs that can not only outperform their ADP, you're going to have to do that to be a league winner, but could also have a ceiling season that can carry your team into the championship. Now, we can only go over 5 running backs today, but if you want my take on every single running back and every player for that matter, along with my exact rankings for every scoring format for 2 and 3 wide receiver leagues, you can find that at my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. All right, so who's winning leagues? We'll go in order of ADP in this list, and we'll start off with DeAndre Swift, coming off the board 15th on Underdog, 15th on ESPN, 16th on FFPC, 19th on Yahoo. He's my running back 7, 10th overall in half PPR, 7th overall in full PPR. And in half PPR, he's only 5.2 points back from being ranked 7th overall there as well, while being 11 points ahead of Mixon. So, he's like secure in that ranking. He didn't just sneak into 10th. He's very close from being ranked 7th, and a pretty significant gap is separating him and the next best running back behind him. Swift will be entering his 3rd season after averaging 3.5 and 4.8 receptions per game over his first 2 seasons. And when I'm thinking about a league winner in the 2nd round specifically, they're gonna need to do everything. They don't need to have a billion rushing yards and a billion receiving yards and a billion touchdowns, right? We're not looking for someone who's guaranteed to be 1st overall, right? But they're going to need to hit on that trio, or at the very least, going to have like a Derrick Henry-like season where they're, leading the league in rushing and in rushing touchdowns and just dominating in those 2 areas. If they're not doing that, they're going to need to hit in 3 areas. And I think that's the case for DeAndre Swift. He's never going to go out there and get 1,500 rushing yards, but rushing is the least valuable touch for fantasy. You guys hear me say that all the time. I'm willing to sacrifice in that area if it means he's going to have a ton of receptions and I think hit on the touchdowns. That's probably the most important one for Swift to really be a league winner, is he's going to have to push, for double digit up to maybe 15 touchdowns, but I think he can do that. 4.8 receptions per game last season. That already puts him on pace for over 80 receptions on a full season. I think he can maintain or even exceed that and maybe get to like 90 receptions this season. And he's managed 17 touchdowns over his first 2 years, despite being a part-time player in the red zone. As a rookie, he scored 10 times despite being dominated 19-33 by Adrian Peterson in red zone carries and being used inside the 5 and the 10-yard line less than Peterson as well. Then he scored 7 times last year despite being used less than Jamal Williams in the red zone and inside the 5. But I think that changes this season. We already saw last year they were expanding his role. They were giving him plenty of targets in the red zone, but they were using him more often at a higher rate in the red zone inside the 5. So they were still using him in that area. He bulked up this offseason, and he's always been efficient with his red zone carries. So it's not like, he's not scoring when they give him the opportunity. They're just not giving him enough opportunity. I think, again, that changes this season. I would imagine he sees more work in that area this year. And as for the receiving, he led all running backs in expected receiving fantasy points before being hurt in week 12 last season. His season-long pace through week 11 was 90 receptions, 714 yards, 3.4 touchdowns, and he was running back 7.5 PPR, 5 in full PPR through week 11. Now entering year 3 in a season where the Lions will likely have their best offensive season in years. And I can't help but be excited for DeAndre Swift's upside. I really, really think he can return exceptional value for anyone who takes him in the 2nd round. You can oftentimes get him a little bit later in the 2nd round. And I think next year is going to be a slam dunk pick in the mid-1st. Next up by ADP, Travis Etienne. Coming off the board 34th on FFPC, 35th on Underdog, 54th on Yahoo, 57th on ESPN. I have him 24th in half PPR, 20th in full PPR. Those ADPs on Yahoo, on ESPN are absolutely absurd. And if there aren't major changes over the next 20 to 30 days, because I mean, this video goes out July 15th. Drafts are happening soon. Maybe not right now, but pretty darn soon. And so if those ADPs don't change, that's going to end up being an egregious mistake by drafters. Sure, we haven't seen it yet, but we know that Etienne is going to be used heavily in the receiving game. And while Robinson could be back to start the season, it isn't a lock that he is, and it isn't a lock that he performs well upon his return. Everyone seems to think that, Akers is cooked after tearing his Achilles, but Robinson tore his in week 16, not the preseason like Akers. That's a significant difference in recovery time. There's also the fact that we have an Urban Meyer free offseason, so Trevor Lawrence actually has a chance to grow as a player this offseason, develop more, and be the player that we know he's going to be. I'm still extremely bullish on him long term, and so I really think this offense is going to blow past their 14.9 points per game that they mustered last season. You guys saw my projection during the Etienne video when I was breaking him down, along with some other second-round running backs. Well, I guess in that video it was more like third, fourth-round running backs because ADP is that late, but for me, he's a second-round running back. But as a reminder, I'm not projecting him for like 15 touchdowns. So this isn't me just like making the Jaguars an insane offense, him being, this like do-it-all player that's, got 2,000 total yards, 15 touchdowns. He's only at 7.7 total touchdowns at the moment, less than 800 rushing yards. And yet, even with those projections, he comes out as an insane value on most platforms simply because he's going to dominate in the receiving game. And that's incredibly valuable for running backs in fantasy. And the true upside comes if this offense does look half decent and he can push for double-digit touchdowns, because then he'll have the touchdowns go along with 70-plus receptions, and that combination will lock him in as a top 10 running back no matter what he does on the ground. Next up, A.J. Dillon. He comes off the board 64th on Yahoo, 66th FFPC, 67th on Underdog, and 98th on ESPN. But I have him 51st in half PPR, 61st in full PPR. And the crazy part about my rankings is that, they're projecting him as the backup, both on the ground and through the air, definitely through the air, but even on the ground, projected for less carries than Aaron Jones. And they're projecting for the Packers to be slow-paced this season, to be a low-volume offense. I gave them nearly a 20% hit in their touchdowns, trailing 2 years due to Adams leaving. And so I'm not projecting them to be some powerhouse offense, but Dillon has such a secure role that he's a great pick, even given his average outcome. But it's the ceiling outcome that makes him a potential league winner. He had over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns playing back up to Aaron Jones last year. But what if Jones went down? Do you really think that like Kylan Hill and Patrick Taylor are stepping up? Like, no, Dillon's going to step into a massive workload. And he's already proved that he's capable as a receiving back. He's not some elite back that's going to have 90 receptions, but he's an efficient receiving back, and he's perfectly fine in the receiving game. They will use him in that area. He will have a ton of touches, a ton of touchdowns, and plenty of receptions to back that up. Insane upside, easily a matchup-proof weekly running back one if Aaron Jones went down. And again, he's undervalued, assuming Jones stays healthy and is a league winner if Jones went down. Those are the players you love drafting, especially in the middle rounds of running backs. There are very few good picks in that range. He's one of the really good ones. Next up, we've got someone in a similar position, and that's Melvin Gordon. Gordon comes off the board 94th on Yahoo, 107 FFPC, 109 Underdog, 120 on ESPN because it's a joke over there. My rankings have Gordon 82nd on half PPR in half PPR scoring, 87th in full PPR. Now, I want to make one thing abundantly clear, is that Javonte Williams is the better running back by a mile, and he is a really good pick. Late second round, early third round. But give me Melvin Gordon in that like 8th, 9th, 10th round range instead, because there's very little opportunity cost in this range, especially, if you can get him in the 9th or the 10th. My goodness, the 10th round, there's no opportunity cost at that point. And the upside's unreal. I mean, Gordon isn't an elite running back anymore. You could argue that he kind of never was truly elite, but he has at least 200 touches in every single season of his career. He's got at least 9 touchdowns in each of the last 6 seasons, including 10 each of the last 2 seasons with Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Ripien, and the GOAT Kendall Hinton as his quarterback. Like, that's a heaping pile of garbage. And it's going to be an insane upgrade going to Russell Wilson this season. They're going to play faster. They're going to throw it more, which can still be fine for running back. I'm okay missing some of those carries, turning them into targets. And if they're going to throw more, be more efficient, well, they're going to score at a much higher rate. There's going to be more yards to go around. There's going to be a better offense. That's beneficial for the running back. And they're going to need to be good because, I mean, look at this division. They're going to need to put up points. They're never going to be able to just win like a, 17-10 game. They're going to have to be putting up close to 30 when they're in these divisional games. That is great for the running backs. If you exclude his rookie season, where he somehow scored 0 touchdowns despite 217 touches, then his worst season was last year at 11.3 half PPR points per game. But even if he repeated that, which again came with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater quarterback, he's going to shatter his ADP. So even without an injury, he's severely undervalued, given how much Wilson's going to elevate this offense and the role that Gordon is still going to have. And if Javonte Williams went down, he's a weekly running back 1 and would be a league winner. Final running back, we'll go over today. Zamir White comes off the board 137th on Yahoo, 170th on ESPN, 186th on FFPC, 207th on Underdog. I have him ranked 166 half PPR, 172nd full PPR. So not a crazy value, not as good of a value as some of the other picks on this list. And he's not a lock to be on like all your teams given that ranking. But very few running backs have his level of upside, especially this late in the draft. And he'll likely be your last running back, and he's a really good pick for your last running back. On average, he'll have a fine season. He'll be used a little bit, but like probably won't be someone you're really starting, especially while Jacobs is healthy, while Jacobs is a full-time starter. But like, what's your expectation with your like 12th, 13th, 14th, maybe 15th round pick? What is your expectation at the running back position? That someone really does go out there and score 15 fantasy points per game? No, they're going to need injuries. They're going to need them to like break out for the other guy to be like relegated to a backup role. You need something to break their way this late in the draft. But he was the #1 prospect coming out of high school. Could have broken records in college, but then he suffers, of course, not 1, but 2 torn ACLs. However, he said that last season was the first that he like really felt comfortable with the knee. That resulted in his best year in college. Really, really good performances in the combine. He helped lead them to a national championship win over Alabama. The combine, 4.4 40, 214 pounds. That's a 95th percentile speed score. Like, he's a great athlete, finally comfortable after the knee injuries. Don't worry about the knees. Be like, oh, maybe he's at more risk to have another knee injury. Yeah, he is. But again, he's going at like 207 on Underdog. He's going, in the 170s, 80s at times. I'm sure you'll be in your hometown leagues where no one knows who he is, and you'll get him with your last round pick. Like, he's not a high-end investment. You don't care about the injury risk at this spot. But he is exactly the type of running back that the Raiders want. They want a downhill runner, someone that will just ground and pound directly at their opponent, find the hole, and just burst through it. That's the running back they want, and that is exactly what Zamir White is. He's not going to like dance behind the line of scrimmage, get a bunch of like sweet passes, try to get in the outside. He's just going to burst through a hole, and that's what they want for the Raiders. And so he's got the power to be a goal line back. He can score touchdowns. So if they happen to bring him on the field, they get close. They don't need to bring him off the field. And we don't know about the receptions. That's the one thing people are going to be concerned with. Be like, oh, well, he has no reception upside. He had no receptions in college. I mean, that's how Georgia operates, right? They don't use a featured back. And so James Cook was obviously the better receiving option. He's going to be the better receiving option than pretty much every other running back. And so it doesn't mean White isn't good in the receiving game. It just means he's not as good as James Cook. But again, like most people are not. Zamir is just a really good early down back that is unproven in the receiving game, but could still be really good. Again, I want to reiterate. The average outcome for Zamir is that he sits on your bench and that you don't really use him. But the average outcome is not what we care about for running backs in like rounds 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's not something you should really even consider. If he hits big on a high-end offense that will be very fantasy friendly. That's what I'm looking for with my last round pick. I believe in his talent. I believe he can be a league winner. So those are 5 league winning running backs for the 2020 season. If you want to see my take on every single player, along with my exact rankings, projections, values, all that stuff, a million other things, you can always see that at my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I'll be back tomorrow to go over the biggest ADP changes over the last week. Then Monday for another episode of Mock Draft Monday. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.